Hello, welcome to this PPR Econ video on economic growth. Start off please by defining economic growth and identifying how it is measured. So hopefully you've got the economic growth as an increase in a country's productive capacity over a specific period of time, and it's measured by GDP. So now I would like you to define GDP please. So hopefully you've got GDP measures the total value of all goods and services produced within a country over a specific period of time. Obviously that's one way of measuring GDP, which is total output. See if you can now identify the other three methods of measuring GDP. So the three ways are total income, total output and total expenditure. So now draw a circular flow of income diagram which backs that theory up. So hopefully you've got this idea of a household and a firm. Initially the household gives the firm factors of production, so factor inputs as you can see there, and in return for that they get factor rewards, which is income, and with their income then they spend that and get goods and services in return. So that's why income should equal output, which should equal total expenditure. From this, however, we've got a few leakages. So see if you can identify what leakages there are from a circular flow of income diagram. So the acronym is SIT, S-I-T, savings, imports and taxes. And now see if you can remember the three injections. So for me, I remember it as in, go, exports. So investment, government spending and exports. Now, if you can pause the video and have a go at defining what short-term economic growth is and what that is to do with, and then have a go at defining what long-run economic growth is and what's that to do with. So hopefully short-run economic growth, you've got its more cyclical changes in real GDP, so it comes about by changes in AD or SRAS. And long-run economic growth is more to do with the productive capacity of the economy. So that's looking at more, I suppose, the LRAS. So see if you can now identify a few benefits of economic growth, please. So there's a few benefits: improved living standards, higher employment effects, possibly from a multiplier effect. Fiscal dividend improves as the government raises more money from tax income and spend less on benefits, and a possible accelerator effect. So an accelerator effect is when there's an increase in any component of, or whenever there's an increase in GDP that leads to a greater than proportionate increase in investment spending. So now see if you can identify a few costs associated with growth. So hopefully you've got these three big ones. If the growth is demand side, there's a higher risk of inflation. There's also environmental effects with pollution, waste and using up non-renewable resources, and also inequalities can come about from rapid growth. There are a few types of GDP, so if you have a think possibly about real GDP, nominal GDP and GDP per capita, have a go at defining them. So real GDP is GDP adjusted for inflation. Nominal is just the value as is of GDP. And GDP per capita is GDP, total GDP divided by the population. So now, difficulties in measuring GDP as an indicator of living standards. So you've got a few here. One way around that last one. So sometimes there's issues comparing national income between countries. One way around that is by using a thing called purchasing power parity. Don't forget about that. That is whenever the strength of different currencies are adjusted so that big figures like GDP can easily be compared with other countries. Now have a go at defining what an economic shock is and identifying the two types of economic shocks, or where they can come from within an economy. So hopefully you've got the shocks or unpredictable changes in AD or SRAS, and that we've got exogenous shocks, which are external, which can come about by world oil prices or exchange rates, and we've also got endogenous, which are internal factors, so changes in the fiscal policies and maybe changes in interest rates can shock the economy in a way that was unpredicted. Now please have a go at defining what is meant by a recession. So a recession is 2 or more consecutive quarters of negative economic growth. And the final thing I would like you to do is to draw an economic cycle, please. Okay, so there's the economic cycle. Don't forget the 2 output gaps: a positive output gap whenever actual GDP is higher than trend GDP, and a negative output gap whenever actual is less than trend. And the 4 phases are in there as well: a boom, downturn, recession, and a recovery. Okay, thank you for watching this video. If you've got any of the questions wrong, please go back and repeat the video trying to answer them all correctly.